It is finally Friday morning here on Breakfast Central. Good morning to our viewers here in Nigeria and in other parts of the world. Thank you for joining us this morning. And as always, for the next 2 hours, we bring you some of the biggest conversations in news and current affairs here in Nigeria. Bits and pieces is, in other parts of the continent. I am Osaogi Ogbawa.
And I am Olive Modi, bringing you some of the big stories and also affording you the opportunity to be a part of the conversation when we open the phone lines. We do that in the second hour of the show, when we, of course, will be reviewing our newspapers, and then we have you calling to share your thoughts on any of the stories that we're going to be looking at. So many big stories have happened over the week, but I will certainly talk about my biggest, which is the fuel scarcity. Much later in the show, we're going to be doing our top stories of the week, but definitely fuel scarcity is one of mine because I feel that it's something that has been like the biggest conversation all week. I would say fuel scarcity and landmark have been the two biggest conversations all week. Fuel scarcity because all of us have felt the impact of it. Yesterday, the House of Representatives had urged Nigerians not to panic buy fuel, stating that it will be sorted out in about 2 to 3 days. The question is if Nigerians will listen. And it's understandable if Nigerians don't listen because in time past, it's not been the norm to hear them say that this will be sorted out in a day or two and it's sorted. It feels like it's a trauma response when people panic buy because they cannot trust that the product will be available the next time that they need it.
Yeah, I mean, panic buy, trauma response, however it is, the point is that there's no petrol. Whether you're advising Nigerians to panic buy or to not panic buy, to wait for 2 weeks, so the point is there is no petrol, So even if I drive there slowly without panicking, or I say let me wait till Friday, to buy, or wait till next week, the point is there is no petrol. The reason that the filling stations are crowded and they have queues, 200, 300, car long queues, is because, once again, there is no petrol. Other filling stations aren't selling. If the petrol was available, across the whole country, nobody would need to panic buy. We wouldn't see the chaos that we're seeing. So whatever language that they, decide to use in deflecting from what the reality is, that's, their own, personal issue. There is no petrol. And, we've seen some of the most, depressing pictures of people. I saw a picture from Kaduna State or so, that is tricycles, about 100 of them, all lined up to try to buy petrol. I saw, a video of people with their generators, taking their generators to the petrol stations to see if they can buy, into, their generator tanks, not even with kegs now. We've seen, of course, the long, jerry cans. We've seen the black market sellers also hustling to buy petrol. So these things don't happen because Nigerians are bored. What are we going to do today? Let's go crowd a filling station. They happen because somebody has failed in the responsibility to ensure that petrol is available. So that's it. Panic buying is a trauma response, but it's once again because there is actually no petrol.
Indeed, there isn't any petrol. Let's see exactly how this has affected Judith, and if she will consider this one of our biggest stories for the week. Good morning, Judith. Welcome to Breakfast.
Morning. Good morning, Olive, and good morning, Osaroge. I mean, it has affected me. I was a bit lucky to have gotten fuel, especially for my folks earlier on before this scarcity happened. I just happened to have gotten it. But from the message I got yesterday, I might be joining the queues as well. So I don't know.
It's sad. It's really, really sad. And I spoke about this earlier in the week, and I probably will bring it up again later today. How Nigerians just look very, very deflated and degraded, belittled, really, on their faces. Look through all the queues that you can see online, or the videos rather. Go to petrol stations and look at those faces. No matter how many times it happens, it just continues to depress you because you continue to just wonder, why do I have to go through this as a Nigerian just to buy petrol? I mean, what's the reason? Who did I offend as a Nigerian that I have to deal with this? I have to leave the office, maybe not show up at work that day because I have to go join a queue for 2-3 hours, begging just to buy petrol. I mean, why does my business have to suffer just because of petrol? And it's not, once again, because Nigerians are bad people. It is because somebody has just failed in the long line, through which, these things should have gotten to the consumer.
Right.
It's sad.
Yeah, it's sad indeed. And honestly, I cannot wait to see what this would look like for our numbers in terms of inflation and economy in and of itself, because you just mentioned business. And so it's very interesting to see what it would look like, because the prices of fuel, they're not paying the standard prices that they normally would, and that would mean a hike in prices. We're already dealing with a lot of increased in terms of inflation when it comes to the price of foods, commodities, and services. And there's also the dollar who's fighting as well. And now people are on the queues. There's going to be an artificial increment on that. It's very interesting to see what this month's number would be looking like.
Well, we'll just have to wait. I'm sure in the next few days we'll get a definite picture, even though many people just assume that the result of this will be definitely an increment in the cost of fuel. It's already been increased, not just at some filling stations, but also at the black market. But we'll talk more about this later. Judith, you'll be bringing us breakfast headlines shortly, but let's see what the top stories are this morning.
This morning, Kaduna bombing, military indicts 2 officers.
And of course, this is an update regarding the mistaken bombing in Tudumbiri. And today we'll be talking about coping with physical disabilities in today's economy, looking exactly at how it affects those living with disabilities.
Anti-corruption stakeholders raise alarm over sabotage.
And top story of the week, we'll be looking at what our top stories are. So many stories, of course, fuel scarcity has to be one of them.
Newspaper front page is also coming your way sometime this morning. You can also join the conversation at that point. But first of all, breakfast headlines with Judith Akatuba.
Welcome to Breakfast Headlines on News Central TV. I am Judith Atibi. We begin from Nigeria, where the military has completed its investigation into the drone bombing of Tudumbiri village in Kaduna State, indicting 2 Nigerian army officers. The officers will face court-martial as the operation should not have occurred. The Director of Defense Media Operations, Edward Buba, revealed this during a press briefing at Defense Headquarters on Thursday. The bombing of Tudumbiri village in Kaduna State, which took place on December 3rd, 2023, resulted in numerous casualties during a Maulud celebration. And still on security, the Nigerian police force said its operatives had arrested one Ibrahim Abdullahi, also known as Mandi, who is believed to be the mastermind behind the March 2022 Abuja-Kaduna train attack. The force public relations officer ASP Olumuyiwa Adejobi disclosed this during a press briefing in Kaduna State. He stated that 48 AK-47 rifles were recovered during his arrest, while investigations are ongoing to identify his sponsor and supplier of the weapons. And let's also tell you that the Nigerian government has initiated a 15-day emergency fuel supply program in a bid to alleviate the hardships faced by Nigerians amidst the widespread fuel scarcity. Under this initiative, vessels importing premium motor spirits (PMS) will continue to dock at ports across the country, offloading much-needed fuel into various depots where they will be swiftly distributed to filling stations nationwide. And on to South Africa, where the Gauteng Health Department has recorded an increase in teenage pregnancy and the termination of pregnancies among girls aged between 10 to 19 years. According to the department's statistics, more than 20,000 deliveries and termination of pregnancy have been recorded in public hospitals across the provinces and increased compared to previous years. In its bid to fight this pressing issue, the department says it will release an intervention plan. And in neighboring Zimbabwe, Iran has offered 1,000 Zimbabweans educational scholarships, and this comes after the vice president led Zimbabwe delegation at the 2nd Iran-Africa International Economic Conference. According to the Zimbabwe government, the aim of the scholarship is to enhance science and technology in the country. The individuals who are lecturers in Zimbabwe will undergo a 6-month course and after head back home and train others in their respective fields. Let's go on to health now. 53 children have lost their lives in Zimbabwe following the outbreak of suspected measles and mumps in the Mashanla West province. These children belong to an apostolic religious sect which is known for rejecting modern medicine as a way of practicing their faith, leading them to refrain from immunization and vaccinating their children. According to government spokesperson Nick Mangwana, the suspected measles outbreak came to light when a member of the church brought 4 of his children to Cairo Hospital, on which 2 of the children were showing signs of measles and the other 2 had bumps. And on now to Central Africa, at least 29 people have died and tens of thousands displaced in Burundi since the start of the rainy season in September last year. This is according to the United Nations. Burundi, which the UN says is one of the 20 countries most vulnerable to climate change, has been meted by almost non-stop rains for months, exacerbated by the El Nino weather pattern. And that's all we can take on the headlines at this hour. Back to Olive and Osara again in the studio.
All right, thank you very much. Interesting stories as always. I'm happy to see that the alleged masterminds of the Abuja-Kaduna train attack have been arrested by the police. And of course, I'm looking forward to further statements from the Nigerian police on that investigation, and also, trying to see where that leads. Because of course, these are some of the things that should serve as deterrents to other criminals, terrorists, kidnappers, and the likes across the country.
I mean, when we see good efforts, we must praise it. So well done to the team.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. In the next couple of days, I'm sure that more information would be revealed. Thanks very much for stopping by. We'll see you at 9.
Welcome. All right, most welcome, guys.
All right. We, of course, continue with Breakfast Central this morning. After this short break, we're moving into our top stories. Anti-corruption stakeholders and pro-transparency organizations have raised the alarm over an alleged plot to sabotage the fight against corruption in Nigeria. They made this warning in the nation's capital, Abuja, saying that there is a plan to target the nation's anti-corruption agencies and the judiciary. Joshua Imarai tells us more.
With Nigeria's anti-graft agencies targeting high-profile politically exposed persons, many will admit that the war against graft is on course. Pro-transparency agencies in Nigeria have, however, raised an alarm over an alleged plot by some individuals to stifle the effort against corruption. They say efforts are already in play to sabotage the recent successes achieved and have concluded plans to shield wanted persons from scrutiny and investigation.
Over the past few weeks, we have observed with great concern the malicious attacks and deliberate effort to blackmail anti-corruption agencies through sponsorship, influencers, insensitive opinion publication in some national dailies, online and electronic platforms, all targeted at discouraging anti-corruption efforts and shielding people who have actually looted this country from being investigated.
The agencies are saying that this is a clear case of corruption fighting back. Some of them believe that to effectively combat corruption and make significant strides towards progress, it is crucial to adopt a cohesive strategy that ensures that the anti-corruption war is no respecter of persons.
We recommend the following. 1, growing concerns over the declining levels of autonomy and integrity of the judiciary must be addressed. 2, to truly establish a flourishing democracy, transparency and accountability must be strictly adhered to in governance. 3, we urge the ruling All Progressives Congress Party and other political parties to take decisive action in purging its ranks by denouncing and breaking support with their members who are currently being investigated by anti-corruption agencies. 4, adequate resource allocation to the anti-corruption agencies has become imperative to uphold their independence and enhance efficiency in the anti-corruption process.
They further urge the Inspector General of Police to promptly reinstate the police personnel withdrawn from the Kaduna State Anti-Corruption Commission so as not to stall the commission from executing its duties effectively. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
Thank you very much, Joshua Imarai, for that report. Indeed, there's a lot of work that has to be done when it comes to the fight against corruption. While the presidency does say that corruption is fighting back, corruption has been ingrained in our system for years. And yes, we agree that it will not be an overnight turn, but it's in the little things that we're doing. It's a collective effort to fight corruption. They talked about the role that the judiciary has to play. A lot of Nigerians, especially after the last election, lost some faith in the judiciary as the last hope of the common man. And as a result, the integrity of the judiciary has been questioned a number of times. So it's important that we review a number of these. We want to see a clear definition and a clear distinction, between the different arms of government, the executive, legislature, and the judiciary, to know exactly, what each arm is doing. We're talking about the independence of the judiciary. The executive, many have clamored that the executive should not be involved in establishing the judiciary. But this is a conversation that continues, and we'll look more into it and shine more light on it here on Breakfast Central.
I agree. And also, I mean, a good thing you mentioned the judiciary, because I think it's one of the challenges that the country has had with the fight against corruption, mostly because, I don't think we've been able to get our criminal justice system to a level where it serves as a quick deterrent, in the fight against corruption. There are too many corruption cases that have been lost, or thrown away, or played with. And that, of course, some of the major players and some of these major corruption cases eventually just get lost in the conversation, and you will never really see punitive measures against these people who have been accused of stealing billions of naira. Remember the Accountant General in the last administration, or remember Abdul Rashid Main. There's too many of these cases that just didn't go anywhere. And, sometimes, there might be the argument that it's a failure of the criminal justice system, failure of the judiciary itself, to ensure that these things, failure of the EFCC itself. So that is important, as much as it's also important to remind Nigerians that the fight against corruption is not simply just the EFCC arresting big politicians. Yes, it's a win, but if we do not have the mentality enough across the federal, state, and local government levels, of course, para state house, military departments, and agencies, to ensure that graft is curtailed, systems are put in place, auditing, is done better, and of course that includes even in the banks. There's too many loopholes through which corruption and money, and Nigeria's money, has continued to just leak out. Too many. It's not just in Aso Rock. It's not just in Government House. It is in every permanent ministry and department agency across the country. And so these are some of the ways that we must ensure that we fight corruption, not just by praising the EFCC for arrests that it has made.
Yeah.
And if we do not regularly see that people who stole, even if it is 10,000 naira from their department's drawer, are sent to jail, if we do not see that, then we're deceiving ourselves. The whole idea of a plea bargain, yes, I understand that it's not just Nigeria that works, but the whole idea of a plea bargain has not worked in Nigeria's favor. The EFCC celebrating that it has recovered 120 billion or even 9 trillion gazillion without us seeing the people who stole these funds in jail is a complete, I mean, it might be good to recover these funds, but it has not put a stop to the funds being stolen.
And that's the most critical part, being able to set our systems and structures in such a way that we have strong deterrents that will prevent people from even going there to steal in the first place. I think where we say we've done a good job is when people go in there will be afraid to steal. Right now, people are not afraid to steal, because what's the worst that can happen? They'll find you, you return some money, all is well, and you have more than enough to continue with your life. So it seems like a worthy investment. You need to make government and look less colorful and less attractive, and make the punitive measures actually stronger. So yes, I completely agree with you. And the anti-graft agencies need to stop doing media trials. Don't get Nigerians excited by, oh, we've arrested these persons, and then after a while we don't hear about them, because we can count a number of cases till now that nothing has come out of it.
Yeah, it just disappeared. And also, corruption is not just about stealing money. It eventually leads maybe to stealing money, but it also is cutting corners. It also is giving out contracts to companies that didn't go through the full bidding process. It's, I mean, it is all corruption.
Are you really shading a particular
administration? No, I'm actually not. I'm just saying that is what corruption generally is. It is cutting corners. It is seeking favors from people who high and mighty because you have relationships with them. It is all part of the whole corruption thing. So we have a long way to go, and it's not.
We do.
I don't think anybody is impressed, to be honest.
Let's continue with the conversation. A recent report by SBM Intelligence says the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, did not do enough to support persons with disabilities, that's the PWDs, during the 2023 elections. It says that only 22.26% of PWDs had assistive aids, while 38.05% could not access voter education initiatives, the report stated. Post-election matters often does not include persons living with disabilities. This can be seen in infrastructural processes, policy and decision-making, calls to action by the federal government, which barely has much inclusion.
And most times when discussions around the poor state of the nation's economy is discussed, persons living with mental and physical disabilities are almost never a talking point. These citizens continue to struggle with getting by each day, managing societal definition of who and what they are and who and what they should stand for. This morning, our first guest will be joining us to look at ways you and other members of the society can be there for persons with disabilities. Our guest is David Temitokpe Uludai. He is an applied psychologist and executive director of Lifeline and Milestone Inclusive Consulting, I beg your pardon, specializing in transformative solutions for individuals with neurodevelopment disorders, physical disabilities, and mental health support needs. That was a lot. Good morning.
Morning.
Thanks for joining us. It's 2024, you know, and it's maybe still heartbreaking that we still are having discussions about how poorly, you know, Nigeria recognizes persons with disabilities and how, you know, how little provision is made for these ones. Over time, it's been a recurring conversation, maybe once or twice every year. But where do you think we are at this point?
I will start by saying that, first of all, thank you for having me. All right, I will start by saying that we would not say there is no progress being made.
Yeah.
All right, because in 2018, there is signing into the law, the Prohibition Act for the discrimination against people with disability. So that's a progress. And look at, since our independence till now, 2018 is just, you know, yesterday.
Yeah.
It means people with disability have, you know, been set aside in their quest to be involved in, you know, the community, in governance, and also in their areas of, you know, desire to fulfill their potentials despite their disability. So, and also, Lagos State government has also done something. Just January, there is an appointment of a new general manager for the Department for People with Disability in Lagos State, Lasoda, and you know, having a conversation with her recently, she told me of her plans and all, you know. And basically, the president of the nation, President Tinubu, actually also, you know, made a promise to people living with disability earlier this year, and also last year through the Minister for Humanitarian Affairs in the nation. You know, these are just promises, but obviously, looking at the present statistics of, you know, the people living with disability and how they have been recognized in our society,
yeah,
you will know that we are very much backward. And to add to this is the fact that you would discover that presently in the nation, and particularly in Lagos State, we do not have specific data of
Capturing
the
these
people
yes,
living with disability. And if you don't have their data, it means you can't reach out to them. It means you do not have a plan for them. And so presently, this is like the state of the nation as it has to do with people living with disability.
All right. Let's talk about the people that fall into the category of people living with disability. Oftentimes, when we hear people living with disability, we look at the physical, those who have some form of physical challenges. We don't talk a lot about those who have mental disabilities. So give us a picture of what constitute people living with mental disabilities.
All right. When we talk about mental health, basically, we are talking about three basic things: your emotional well-being, social well-being, and your psychological well-being. And that means we are talking about how you are able to feel, to think, and also behave.
yeah,
And of course, you know, this imparts our daily function. All right. So when we talk about physical disability, obviously we see people with physical disability, we can recognize them. However, there are a lot of disability that is called invisible disability. Although there are neurodevelopmental disabilities that are actually, you know, based in brain dysfunction and can actually result into physical disability. But not all neurodevelopmental disability, for example, is visible. All right, like somebody with ADHD, all right, somebody with OCD and other diagnoses, you would discover that these are invisible. And so lack of diagnosis or also limited or misdiagnosis is what we see these days, and it is a concern that we need to really look into, because people living with disability experience a lot of mental health challenges because they do not have access to, you know, healthcare generally,
Right.
and also mental healthcare facilities.
Now, I'll come back to the physical. I want to talk about the mental a little more.
Okay.
Challenges, the average Nigerian has gone through a really tumultuous time. It's been very turbulent, trying to make ends meet. And even those who did not think they had mental health challenges now feel like they are dealing with some form of anxiety and depression because people just don't know what next. We're dealing with inflation, we're dealing with high cost of living. So it's just a lot of factors that would affect the average person who naturally doesn't have any form of mental disability. So now talking about those who already have mental disabilities, like you've mentioned, in this time, is there any form of support available to them, you know, and how, what exactly does pressure in this time look like for those who have mental challenges? After that, we'll come to those living with the physical challenges.
To talk about mental health challenges and the provision made available for them, first of all, when we look at the statistics, you see, it is, we have 1 in 4 Nigeria presently, according to World Health Organization, says 1 in 4 person has a mental health challenges, okay? And if you look at that, you look at situations surrounding this, such as the economy, and other factors which you have mentioned, you'll find out that the challenge they have presently is the fact that they don't have access. Then most of them who actually know that they are actually battling with, you know, one mental health challenges or the other, they actually face discrimination. An average Nigerian who knows that he's facing mental health challenge does not want to seek help. What they do is to mask because of discrimination.
Right.
You know, what would people say about me if they find out that I am battling with this or that? So because of discrimination, a lot of people would rather, you know, lean on masking than, you know, seeking help from professionals. And what about the professionals? Do we have enough professionals who are trained to handle the issue of mental health challenges among Nigerians? The statistic also shows that the professionals available presently is, you know, 1 to 100 Nigeria.
Yeah.
And that's not enough. A lot of our mental health facilities do not make provision for mental health care, except for the neuropsychiatric hospitals that we have, very few in Nigeria. And these are organizations and institutions attending to people that are having severe mental health challenges. But you don't have to, for example, be mentally retarded to get help. You know, cases like anxiety, you need a professional intervention. But you do not just get access to them, not because the few are not there, but because there are a lot of people to be attended to, as against the number of professionals that are trained, certified, and given opportunity to practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us about what I think we've already established that we already have challenges as a country, but what would a society, what would a society that truly recognizes these persons and makes provisions for them, what would that society be like? What are the things that you would say to the Lagos State government, for example, that you must put in place if you truly want to recognize these ones and make provisions for them?
Someone once said that the true measure of a society is how they treat the vulnerable among them.
Yeah.
And so, in that regard, we would say that presently, the society needs to understand three basic things. Number one is inclusion.
Yeah.
And when we talk about inclusion, it's not just, okay, just join us, we are here. We also talk about, accessibility. A lot of them are potential. We need to understand that disability does not, describe anyone. And we need to begin to educate and create awareness that people should understand that people are not limited by their disability. All right? And we need to also ensure that we, apart from inclusion, apart from accessibility, advocacy is very, very important too.
Yeah.
We all need to understand that, first of all, the society needs to understand that everyone is, first of all, human before you talk about their disability or abilities. So we need to begin to think from that perspective in order for us to, be able to provide proper accommodation for people living with disability.
Okay, you talked about the promises. You talked about having a conversation with the manager of La Soda. You talked about, the president and the promises. Do you feel very positive about the plans that are being made for people living with disabilities in Lagos?
Yeah, we can only hope. We've had a lot of conferences, we had conversation, and we also hope for collaborations and partnership with government agencies concerning this. We would not say that at the moment that we are so proud. On the news just last year, 4 people were empowered by the federal government, among how many people living with disability.
Yeah.
So is nothing to be proud about. So we also need to call on the government to look into this. It's not enough to make policies. Much more, there is need for the government to also, send out task force to ensure compliance with these policies. So it's not about, making policies and expecting that the policies will be implemented just like that. So there's need for strategies for implementation. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that you've had a lot of conferences, which is true. Every now and then we have these discussions. We celebrate, international days, United Nations days for, this and that. But, the challenge really is action, and we don't get to see that there's a lot of action and steps being taken in that, regard. The Lagos State government will make its, its promises. The Nigerian government will make its promises, but there still obviously needs to be a whole lot more that is done with regards to inclusion and, of course, making provisions to recognize these ones in society, and also just generally changing the mindset that people have, concerning persons with disabilities. But baby steps, I guess. Thank you very much
Thank you very much
for stopping by, and of course, we look forward to having a discussion sometime in the future that, of course, states, that we've made progress.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we of course continue conversations this morning here on Breakfast Central in its recently completed and eagerly expected investigation into the bombing of innocent civilians in Tudumbiri village, Igabi local government area of Kaduna State. The military high command indicted 2 Nigerian officers and warned them that they would face court-martial. We'll tell you about that story after this break. welcome once again. And now, of course, conversations concerning the bombing in Tudumbiri village, Igabi local government area in Kaduna State. In its recently completed and eagerly expected investigation, the military high command indicted 2 Nigerian army officers and warned them that they would face court-martial since the operation should not have happened. During a press conference in Abuja on Thursday, Edward Buba, the director of Defense Media Operations, stated that the military carried out a thorough investigation into the unintentional drone strike and that servicemen who were charged have been subject to disciplinary proceedings.
He went on to say the army accepted responsibility and that it was an error. Recall that on the 3rd of December 2023, during an Eid Malud celebration, there were many casualties from the bombing of Tudumbiri village. Recall also that the bombing which took place on the 3rd of December resulted in numerous casualties, and this confirmed 85 bodies buried by the National Emergency Management Agency 2 days after the accident. Joining us to discuss this is Dr. Tony Ofoyetan, Director General, International Institute of Professional Security. Good morning, Mr. Ofoyetan. Thank you very much for joining us. Regarding this update on this story, the military, of course, has done its investigation. Whilst many clamor that it should not be the one to investigate itself, but they've done their investigation, they've brought out their reports. We don't have the full picture yet, but with what we have, is this something to be very excited about?
Well, I think I would admit that this should be about the first time or very rare occasion where especially the military will come out to indict in public. And I think it's a good one, and it's also going to act as deterrent. Don't forget that the issue of a mistaken strike of drones is becoming one too many, and the casualties are becoming so much. The last one was such that drew a high public cry and a condemnation. And the military was humble enough to even admit responsibility, took it upon itself to go on to investigate, and eventually indicted some of its officers that are going to be court-martialed. If you ask me, I think that is a good step in the right direction. In most cases, almost all security agencies, they have their own internal disciplinary mechanism, except for maybe few occasions where they have to dismiss the officer and hand him or her over to the police. But this one is strictly a military offense, and I'm sure that that is why they took it upon themselves to conduct the investigation. It's always another department that will do that. In all such agencies, they have their intelligence units that will also go into investigation of things like this, and they've been able to pin it down either by error of omission or commission. In actual fact, their own position is that that strike ought not to have even happened at all in the first instance. And as a result of that, I've indicted some of the officers that will be court-martialed. For me, I think it's a good one, in as much as the damage has been done, and it is an irreparable damage, but it is nationally consolatory that the military took it upon itself to also, take steps to fish out those that did it, indict them, and make them to also want to face the consequences of their natural action or inaction. For me, I think it's a good one.
I mean, a lot of people would disagree with that, and we probably would x-ray what a court-martial really is. How does this bring justice to those who have lost their lives? There's going to be 85 bodies here. Families were wiped out, I believe. But I want us to go back to Iran in 2017. If you remember the Iran bomb in 2017, reports had it that 150 Nigerian lives were lost that day when the army once again misfired into a crowd in Borno State. We haven't heard anything, about that investigation. It seems to have, died a natural death. And of course, those families and those lives, have not got the justice that they seek or that they deserve. And so, shouldn't we ensure that that also is investigated? Those ones also get justice, instead of clapping for this one?
I think I agree with you in totality without even any out of argument or, contrary position. But having said so, I think unfortunately and painfully, if you ask me, my own thinking is that the military formation think that the previous government, that these things happen under their own watch, ought to have done their work and concluded their own part of the job. So if they didn't do it, I think that is what they try to avoid as much as possible, to say this is not our responsibility. It should be the responsibility of the previous government. And if they didn't do it, I think except Mr. President gives them a direct go-ahead, they most likely may not go into that route.
Yeah, isn't that dangerous? Because if you said it should be the responsibility of the previous government.
I agree with you that it does not send the right signal, but you must understand that regimented agencies don't act independently, and that's just the truth. Anywhere in the world, be it Mossad, be it the KGBs, the MI15, MI16, be it anywhere in the world, whether the FBI or the CIA, they don't act independently. There must be an approval from the highest authority before they take certain position, before they do certain things, be it surreptitiously, overtly, or covertly. They must have that express, it's not just even, Mr. President can make public pronouncement, for example, and nobody is following through the pronouncement. Why? Because it has to go through the normal communication channel. If Mr. President comes tomorrow and say that we are going to investigate and ensure justice for the Ogoni 9 that had happened so many years ago, now he has said it in public and will say that that is, a plane to the gallery. Yes, and everybody claps for him and it becomes a headline news. However, the question will not be, will the military, will the DSS, will the police now take action upon such statement? The answer is in the negative. Until he does a direct order, duly stand by him or, the secretary, then it is at that point in time that it becomes a Mr. President's order to investigate certain things. So there are certain things that, you must not be seen in the security business as being more Catholic than the Pope. You must not move faster than your boss. It's a product and an agency of obeying orders. Even if you are very proactive, you must also ensure that your proactiveness is in line with the mindset of your boss, who gives you the final order to go ahead. I think basically that's the area I will look at it as far as some previous investigations are still ongoing, are still ongoing. Yes, no doubt about that. And it may even shock you that some of the reports are even ready. But whether they will be made public or not is a different ball game entirely, because it will take the permission of the boss, in quotes now, to say, make it public. There are some of these officers that have been disciplined internally, that have been indicted and disciplined internally. Some of them demoted, some of them even, suspended, some of them removed. And quietly, they will leave this quietly. That is one good thing about the military and the security agencies generally. If a police officer slaps you, or if a police officer beats you or harasses you, and the matter is taken to the provost marshal of the police, now to you as a civilian or an outsider, it's as if nothing has been done. But the police officer or that military officer knows that it has in a very big way affected his progression in the service. It has affected his career. Because what will happen is that they may not flog him in your presence, they may not do a lot of things in your presence, they may just do things that may be pacifying and the like, and you go. Now, if the man is entitled to promotion, he may not get that promotion. Now, if he's in a particular position, he may be redeployed from that position. And that very offense may perpetually stand against him at every promotion all through his career. I've seen many police officers that were, impeded on such ground. But those people that they offended, or those people whose right they actually impeded upon, did not know. So they have their own, all of them, they have their own disciplinary mechanism, and their discipline can be very harsh and very unpalatable. Very harsh and very unpalatable. So at times, even if we're not hearing it in public, it doesn't mean that they have not done anything.
But don't you think that those who, of course, have lost family members and loved ones in this would need some form of assurance that this discipline is happening? I mean, you're saying that sometimes discipline happens, but we won't hear exactly what's happening. But these people need justice. And don't you think that, you know, it's important, even if they don't notify the whole public, but that they notify the people who lost loved ones as to what measure of discipline is being carried out? You know, don't you think that that's a possible element to consider?
And even the possibility of compensation for these ones.
I agree with you. Compensation in criminality like this is actually an administrative decision. In criminality, there is no compensation, but what we have is, punitive measure against the criminal. That is why you see that a thief will burgle your house, will steal your things, and will be taken to court and will be imprisoned. And the court is not going to say anything about compensation. Now, restitution. Now, if you want your property that have been stolen or damaged to be restituted, restored, or compensated, then you have to now start a civil proceedings against the criminal, so to say. Now, for offenses like this that has its national flavor, it is Mr. President's natural directive to inform the Chief of Defense Staff or the Chief of Army Staff that the family should be compensated. The family, the Chief of the Service Chief also, they also have such prerogative to ensure that families are pacified through minimum compensation. So to that extent, I agree with you. And I know that there have been instances where the military had actually extended their hands of fellowship and, regret, so to say, to families of loved ones that lost their loved ones. They've done that. They've done that before. But for this one, whether they will do it or they won't do it, I don't know. It depends on who is at the helm of affairs, and it depends on the conviction of those that are at the helm of affairs. You also see that they also have their own shortcoming. Even veterans at times have protested against the lack of proper welfare, even veterans themselves. So at times when you have leadership that are insensitive, when you have, people that are at the helm of affairs in any of the security agencies that are not empathic enough, then that may be something that they will KIV, let me put it like that. But in the absence of that, for example, for a situation like this, where one, they have admitted to their guilt in public, secondly, they have also been able to identify those that are indictable, and thirdly, they have also put machinery in motion to court-martial them. I can assure you that the military will not just go and sleep thinking that nothing would happen, because in a situation like this, if any of the families should take the military to court, I can assure you that they will get, the type of money that the military does not even have to pay. Because I'm talking of more than 80 human beings that lost their lives.
Yeah, but
80 families. So if they come on class action, or some group of human rights advocates and lawyers have decided to weld into the matter and take the military to court, compensation may be very high. So I want to ask, and I know that they most likely would be looking at pacifying the families.
Yeah, but from your perspective, would you still recommend, even if it's not up to you, but would you still recommend, a class action suit against the Nigerian government for situations like this, for situations like the one in Iran in Borno State in 2017, for even the Zaria massacre, that happened, to the Shiites, where they, there's claims that 500, plus of them were killed, maybe even more. Would you recommend class action against the federal government, for justice for those lives that were lost in these different incidents?
Well, each incident is a product of what happened at the end of the day. And like you rightly said, I'm not in position to recommend whether there should be class action or not against the government. But my own position is simple. Justice should actually be for all the families that lost their loved ones. It should not just be a public apology. It should not just be, we are sorry, we made a mistake. And when we talk about justice, you are talking about the children of those that died, their children, their wives, or their husband must be well situated. Those that are peasants, those that are farmers, those that are artisans, give them things that you know will sustain them. You don't need to give some of them money. If you have a woman who is into trading, why don't you try to establish the business in such a manner that she will be able to fend for the children? Or you have the children, you have schools. There are military schools everywhere in the country. Give them automatic admission from that level down to NDA or to the Army University. Let it be, a full scholarship to all the families. Now, these ones are not going to cost you any extra money, but they can be highly compensatory to the families. These are things that me as a person, I am looking at. A situation where anybody that is indicted, now you go to the families of those that are victims and make sure that their direct family, when I say direct family, I mean the wife or the husband and the children only. Do something, what you call, kind compensatory agenda for all of them. Those ones that are left to school, if you have places you can employ them, you employ them. If you don't have places you can employ them, now you look at what you think you can do to establish them in such a manner that they do not eventually become a nuisance to the society as a result of the absence of their parents, either father or mother. Now, these are things that I'm looking at, because even if I say, okay, class action and all those stuff like that, and all of you go to court, one, you spend a lot of money, you spend a lot of time. At the end of the day, the justice is neither here nor there. There could be one technical ground upon which that matter is thrown into the bush, or alternatively, you even get the justice and they are asked to pay you money. If they say, okay, give all of them 1 billion naira, the 80 families 1 billion naira to share, what is going to be the ratio of sharing? That becomes another thing entirely, and all those stuff. But if the military is able to take it upon itself to say, okay, let's avoid the embarrassment of the court proceedings and all those stuff like that, call the families together, put up a template upon which you can compensate those ones that have happened before now, those ones that are happening now, and those ones that will happen in future. I'm not being a prophet of doom, but it does happen. The only prayer we pray is that it should be generation. It should be a different generation in each of such casualty, and not in the same generation. I think that's my own position. I try as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean,
when it comes to encouraging class action against the military, because I love them so much. They are using their blood to ensure that you and I, we can have this interview. If not so, the military would have bombed our houses and our studios.
Well,
I mean, criminals,
that's the reason they were set up in the first place, and so everyone, should play their responsibility. It's not disrespecting, the efforts that they've made and the sacrifices that they've made, but when Nigerian lives are lost, questions must be asked and answers must be given. The Nigerian life, should not be that cheap, that we can simply just murder 500 people in a day, like in Zaria, and the country moves on. I don't know why or where that should happen, and nobody is raising these questions. So, yes, respect to the military, but these questions must be asked. Mr. Foyte, thanks for stopping by and for speaking with us. We look forward to more conversations.
Thank you very much for having me. And we also congratulate the military. And I also congratulate you guys' efforts. And the truth is that many of these things most likely would not have achieved this positive result if you guys didn't put it in public domain and it becomes a public analysis. Some of these things might have even been swept under the carpet. But for the diversity of people like you, and I think your contribution to national development is enormous. Thank you, and God bless you guys.
Thank you also. All right. Breakfast Central continues. Let's quickly share with you a quick recap of some of the things that we've spoken about in the past hour, and also what comes next. Yes, Kaduna bombing, we just, of course, got off a conversation. The military indicts 2 officers, but we're asking, is that justice?
And we talked about coping with disabilities in today's economy, physical and mental disabilities, and what exactly the government should do.
Also, anti-corruption stakeholders raise alarm over sabotage. We started a program with that this morning and what that means. But that's not all this morning. I'll share with you what's coming next on Breakfast Central.
Top story of the week is what we're going to be looking at shortly, and which way Nigeria is something to explore as well. And then, of course, we'll be looking at the newspaper front pages. Stay with us.
Great to have you join us. Now let's get into the newspapers this morning, share with you the major stories, making headlines across Nigeria. We are joined by Mr. Razak Olokoba, who's going to be our analyst and share his thoughts on these major stories across Nigeria today. We kick off with this Nigeria newspapers, which comes up right there on your screen. It says there, Kaduna airstrike mishap. 2 officers face court-martial, says military. Troops kill 715 terrorists, rescue 465 kidnapped victims in April, says Defense Headquarters. In River State, Magnus Abe returns to the APC, discloses reconciliation with Wike. And we can also find top of the screen there, mass wedding, Kano Hisba allocates 50 slots for journalists. Not even sure what that is. Court remands suspect over killing a 14-year-old Anjorin in the UK. A poor, very sad story of a 14-year-old Nigerian who was killed by
By a 36-year-old man.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on. If it was a mental, crisis or whatnot. I don't know.
UK has had many incidences of stabbing. It's just very sad since they don't have guns.
All right, let's start with the story on the Kaduna airstrike mishap. We just got off a conversation, concerning that, and let's have you share your thoughts on that. Is this justice? Is the court-martial for 2 people that may be responsible for that very, very terrible situation? Can that be described as justice for the victims?
Of course, and it should not be limited to only issues only. Even accident or roads should also be treated in the same manner. The more accident commission in Nigeria don't pay attention to issues like this, the more we'll be having more accidents on our road. I saw a report 3 days ago that 10% of deaths that were recorded as a result of accident on our road were tiredness, and 30% of it, of the remaining 90%, was as a result of the careless nature of the drivers, and another 30% as a result of the condition of the vehicle, while the remaining is the road, the bad road. So all these things, if people are not held responsible, to continue. And for you to sign that you can die for your nation, that's the military, the police, if need be. You can't take life needlessly. What is military is called accuracy and precision.
Yeah.
So in war, collateral damage do happen. In fact, that's the reason why America did not join ICC, International Criminal Court, because they said they are the police of the world. And in warfare, the collateral damage do happen. So they can't be taken to court often enough, which is not a correct excuse. It's not an objective reason for you not to join. Because you push other countries to join, you force them to join, and the 2 arrests by 2 presidents in the world, to the Pinochet and Charles Taylor, was masterminded by America. So for this kind of thing, Nigerians will know that, of course, they are safe in the hand of the security agent. Our heart goes to Nigerians, soldiers, Air Force, navies that died in the course of duty. But we must not use that as a license, the uniform as a license to start killing anyhow. And the death of that lady, do you remember the lady that always play a major role in airstrikes? That was,
yes,
I think they should visit that case too. So when you do this kind of thing, that's what tells you that I'm safe in my country.
Yeah.
That's what tells you that I can die for my country by citizens. The flight that left for the Pentagon, for the White House, and for World Trade Center, the one that went for the World Trade Center, they succeeded. The Pentagon, they did not succeed, but the one that was going for the White House, we learned later in the report that citizens rose in the plane and they combated the terrorists, that you can't go for a White House. And it ended the show. They couldn't get to the, of course, they would have been pulled out because they can't get to the White House. But God forbid bad thing. So this type of things is an inspiration for you to also be willing to do anything for your country. So we need to see the final justice on it. We can't just placate us with the newspaper, media. We want to see what is the punishment for the. And I know that the army, in the three of them, Navy, they have a very credible disciplinary measure. There was a time 2 military men also seek for the help of one Muslim cleric, and on the road they killed him. They found them out, and they are facing justice now. So I am a supporter of it, and I want to wish that we see the end of it. Whatever punishment is due to them should be meted out.
All right. Let's move from this Nigerian newspaper to the next paper that we have this morning. And on the front page of our next paper, which is the Vanguard, minimum wage, governors working on what is payable. And then they're, of course, saying that they set up a 37-member committee and is still consulting assures of looking into remuneration of state judicial officers, infrastructure of courts. Labour justifies 615,000 wage demand, gives breakdown, counters government on May 1st commencement date for new minimum wage. Press freedom crucial to democracy and good governance, says NGE. Resident doctors protest shortage of manpower and others in Kogi. Petrol scarcity, long queues linger despite federal government assurances. Okwama, court adjourns till June 4th for hearing. IPOP declares sit at home May 30th to honor Biafra heroes. NSA orders enforcement of cybercrime law. Obaseki accepts Vanguard Award. Interesting. Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, federal government allegation divisive and distracting, says Obi. NDIC raises deposit insurance coverage by 900%. Let's start with the big story there, which is the minimum wage story. Labour insists 615,000 naira wage demand. Is that a feasible fee? And I'm not saying is it logical, because if you look at the rising cost of living, I think that they deserve whatever it is they're asking for. But is it a feasible?
Is it realistic?
Is it realistic what they're asking for?
No, to me, it's very, very ridiculous. You know, the institution that is fighting for the welfare of labor is an institution that belongs not only the executives, so they can't continue to mismanage it. This kind of demand is one act of mismanaging that institution, and NSC president should stop doing that.
No, but why do you see it as mismanaging it?
By this kind of demand is ridiculous. And for us, who are members of civil society, right from 1999, we have always had collaboration with the NLC. But the pattern is not clear. It's not, at times, they look unserious to us.
What would you call it? What's a figure that would not be ridiculous?
It's a preamble to what will lead me to this.
Okay.
We form what is called LASCO, Labour and Civil Society Coalition.
Yeah.
We always coalesce. But the easiest way out to workers' welfare is to ask for wage increase. And if you look at what led to welfare of labor, it's not essentially even about the wages. It's about the essential things of life. Adequate training. What do you need to survive as a human being? Food, housing. It's only about 25% of it that is in the purview of the government. Yeah. Others are private sector responsibility. So I would say you can't be going to government all the time to make demand on government and turn your back on other sectors, which is the private sector. We said, labor, let us work together to determine what do a staff need to survive on. Salary will then come later to then determine, okay, the cost of living, housing in the country. Can you engage owners of houses all over the country? What's your profit from a house? You see some landlord charging a exorbitant fee, and you think that's not the duty of our responsibility of the labor. It's part of their duty, and the civil society and price control agency. Same thing. What is the landing cost of every essential food that we eat? Yam and all those things, so that we will be able to determine whether there's a sabotage from the commercial venture, or from the commercial. So labor won't do that. All they do all the time is a confusion. To increase your salary today, only about 3 months later, prices of products skyrocketed. Without putting a mechanism to ensure that that does not happen. No, but what we are saying, what the increase of salary was, we are saying is that the present demand is that what can a worker earn to make him survive now? That's what we should be all working on. But 3 months later, it goes up again. And that's been the pattern since 1999. We said, no, don't leave that to happen at all time. When Obaseki announced his own now, go to Edo now. Prices are going up already. And we said, no, let's do it simultaneously. Let's talk to all the people who are in charge of all the essential transportation. Let's have a discussion with them. The thing is, so the easiest way out is not to be casting, is just to be asking for price increase, and it's very nonsense of the whole show.
Mr. But price regulation would not necessarily be Labour's responsibility.
It's part of their responsibility.
I
you can't be engaging. You can't be engaging.
These things are still very, very dependent on government policies.
So in your own estimation, everything about your life.
If a person, no.
Everything about your life is
regulation. No, you're not getting me.
Okay.
When I say price regulation, the fact that buses or transportation costs are high, it's not because somebody is greedy. It is because petrol is 600 naira, 1,000 naira.
You are coming to my point already.
Sorry?
You are coming to my point already.
So that's what you're saying now is that Labour should investigate people who own houses
not picketing.
I mean, but
there should be a stakeholder discussion on this matter. There should be a stakeholder discussion on this matter. That let me explain myself. That why are you charging a exorbitant fee?
But why do you call it exorbitant? If they're buying petrol at 600 naira per litre, why is it exorbitant that they have to increase their rates also?
Why will you collect 10 million naira on a house you built 25 years ago? It's exorbitant. I mean, that's the case. That rent is one of the issues. I'm just using transportation fee as one of it. And up to today, prices of dollar is coming down, which was one of the excuses.
You say it's coming down?
Yeah, prices of dollar, of naira is fluctuating now.
Yeah, it's fluctuating.
The prices of commodities are not fluctuating. Well, and that was the excuse they gave why the prices went up. So if you are not serious about this issue, don't let us gossip again. If you want to be serious about it, let's be objective.
All right, we'll come to that.
Government has its own blame. The private sector, the labor, and Nigeria have our own blame. And we must stop the attitude of heaping all the blames on the government. It's a shared blame.
Okay, hold on. Let's hear from Chidi, who's calling from Lagos. Good morning, Chidi. Thanks for calling. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Yeah, my take this morning is on the minimum wage. Anytime I hear of minimum wage, it disturbs me a lot because these Nigerian governors, they will just sit down there and say they are thinking on what is payable to the citizens. This morning, federal government gives them this allocation every month. And they will be sitting down to tell us that they are thinking on what they will be able to pay. It's something worrisome for a common man to hear because we know that the federal government used to give all the states allocation for them to be able to pay their workers. And they will come to tell us that they are thinking on what, not even that, okay, they have arrived on what they will be paying. It's something that somebody will sit down and say, these people are joking. They are toying with the common man. It's something so I don't understand, and I don't know why the governors, they should have a committee to be seeing all these governors that, okay, if you have given you allocation, they should follow up on those money that they have been giving to governors. If not, the easiest thing is that, okay, send back the autonomy back to the local government. If they know they cannot be paying those kind of money, because a governor will just sit down and pack somebody and carry the state money and keep and say he doesn't know how much he will be able to be paying people, or he has not arrived on what he can pay. No, they collected this autonomy from local government to you people to be able to monitor, and you people cannot still monitor. It's something worrisome. Look at the local government. If you go to everywhere, they are locked up, which is everywhere in the local government councils. For how long can we continue living in this kind of propaganda everywhere? It's worrisome. I'm not happy to hear this kind of a thing. They should come to with a concrete agreement that, okay, this is the minimum wage, and they should take it like that. Thank you, and God bless Nigeria.
And I think what it is saying reflects the mindset of a lot of Nigerians, because whilst you're saying that it's not feasible because they need to have a stakeholders meeting, A number of I know.
making.
I say whilst you are saying that,
Yeah.
a number of Nigerians are saying, but these people are collecting security votes. They are collecting allocation from the federal government every month. So if they have all these, why can't they decide to cut their own excesses to be able to afford that of the average Nigerian worker?
But don't take a position until you hear from the governor. That's why that stakeholder meeting is necessary. You are making a case for the transport owners, which is good. But those are one of the reasons they will give, that fuel and issues like that. Then it then go back to the government, that what do you want to do about fuel? So any policy the government rolls out on oil sector, they will know there's a demand from Nigeria. It's not a decision of the government. So the stakeholders will be present while all those agreements will be made. But my challenge with Labour is the same challenge I also have with the governors. But the governors will also have their own argument.
All right.
Labour is always saying that the government has enormous resources at its disposal.
All right. Let's hear from Elder David.
Yeah, we're going to talk about petrol next.
Yes.
Elder David, good morning. Go ahead.
Good morning, ma. Good morning, sir.
Please go ahead.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma. Thank you very much. Actually, when we talk of workers, without the government workers, there will be no democracy. It's all over the world.
Clearly, because your TV is on. Please turn down the volume of your TV set.
Of salary for the workers.
Elder David, please turn down the volume of your TV set, and then you can call again.
As a civil servant for something, I know what it is.
Well, we're going to have you
We're
call
going to have
back.
to disconnect, please. Call us back after you've turned down the volume of your TV set, because your TV set is interfering with the conversation. Yeah. Just to our future callers, please turn down the volume.
All right, let's talk about petrol scarcity. It says long queues linger despite federal government's assurances. There's some confusion. Ipman says one thing, the House of Reps says another thing. What are your thoughts?
I heard that there's a speculation that Dangote's product is going to storm the market very soon. And if that speculation comes in, it comes with how you are going to also handle your own supply too. That Dangote has given an example of what is going to do with the prices of his product. Diesel has been brought down by Dangote. So it forced other prices, other sellers to bring down their price. So as a businessman, they will try to be careful not to buy fuel. But in all of this, it comes down to what we have been saying, that the structure of the country is too bogus. We have to put it down. To get a license to refine fuel in this country, why will it look as if it's a license to heaven? Give licenses to anybody that is willing and qualified to refine fuel. As long as we have this kind of attitude towards refining fuel, the problem will linger, particularly when you think you want to deny the real owners of the resources access to it. The resources of nation is best managed by the owners, which is the state. And any political theorist that says that the devolution of power is too early for Mr. President is not politically clear date. Since 1966, that we have entered into unity system of government, which is the case with Nigeria now. In paper, it's federating units. And in practice, it's unitary. So, and since that time up to today, there has been one challenge or the other. So there can't be any time the president of Nigeria will be at peace and say, okay, now I'm at peace. Let's talk about how to devolve power. So the final solution to this problem, because if we are able to survive this, another problem from oil and gas sector will rear its head. And like she has said, and corroborated by what one of our callers said, that the governors prioritize wrongly for us in terms of what they do. Some governors got it right, but a lot of them don't get it right. What stops governor of a state from having their own refineries? There's nothing stopping them. But they can build the airport. They can do, of course, a congested state like Lagos can have 2, 3, 4 airports. But some states, we're wondering how many people fly from your state that you want to have airport. You can go to the neighboring state. So what I'm saying in essence is that the argument that we should remove the hand of the federal government from oil and gas sector to a minimal responsibility is not enticing to people. The immediate solution, and the immediate solution is what we've been talking about since 1999. Yeah. Obasanjo, as a result of this, increased fuel price about 13 times, and we combated him. We said the solution to bringing down the prices of products in Nigeria is to have a lot of refineries, give to private sectors. So they are monopolizing it. And if Nigerians feel that there's a magic any president will do to solve our problem, rather than this part, we are deceiving ourselves. It's Herculean, it's a difficult terrain, but that is the way out of it. We can't have Port Harcourt, Kaduna, Warri,
all dilapidated, dead,
and Dangote servicing 250 million Nigerians. That's not possible. We will always be traumatized. There will be no enough supply. There will be.
No, but right now we don't even have any of them. You're talking, that 4 of them or 5 of them will not be enough.
It's not enough.
Now we don't even have any of them. I mean, can we have 4 at least first?
See.
I mean, what is our local consumption daily? See, 60, 70 million, 40 million liters.
See, it's easy to sabotage 4 or 5 refineries, but it's not easy to sabotage 72 refineries.
But let's have the 4 or 5 first.
This is what we've been saying all this while. Let's take the bull by the horn. I mean, the news that more refineries are coming on, but it's the reason why this one will work. Dangote brought down the prices of product. It set them working. People bring down their prices too. So give licenses to more people that are willing. Tell state governors, give it a matching order that you must have a refinery in your state. That's the demand we want from the president. So, and as long as anybody is sitting close to the president saying that these are fundamental political challenges that you need to take time to address, so they are just deceiving him. I know the president very well. We know the sacrifice has gone through. We can't keep our short and allow him to fail because we don't want him to get angry by saying the truth. The truth is that the slow pace towards the evolution of power by Tinubu is a risk. It's taking a very big risk.
Okay.
Look at Jonathan. The first 2 years of Jonathan as a replacement for Yar'Adua. We quickly walk up to him that this is a good news. He said, let me get to the second tenure. It's a bigger political issue.
So you expect,
and that 4 years.
So you expect that the current administration will...
The current administration, yes. I'm saying that the pace is slow.
But you expect that it will get to full devolution of power?
Looking at what he has done in the past, he has the capacity, he may be willing. But there are certain people who are bringing up theories that, if they just say the word of first tenure, we should not talk about the devolution of power. And that's wrong.
All right.
So, and it's a distraction for him. The major focus and the major challenge we have in this country, why we are having security challenges, why will somebody be wasting time and bringing up state police? Coming from where Tinubu is coming from, the 8 years of Obasanjo was thoroughly on opposition to state police. But today he's talking about state police.
All right.
Why do we have president after 8 years buying into what you have been saying, what you have discussed before he got to power? This 8 years, you will say no. After leaving, you will come back to the same topic again.
All right, let's quickly take one paper and just run through the headlines as quickly as possible. Our final paper for this morning. Let's see the front page of the Daily Times. On the front page, we have Nigeria's economy to experience significant growth soon, according to Shetima. When is soon, or how soon is soon? Implores Nigerians to be patient to President Tinubu's administration. We are reviewing our fiscal space to arrive at improved minimum wage, according to the NGF. Commends Nigerian workers for their dedication to service patients in face of many challenges. More than 15 terrorist commanders neutralized in April, according to military spokesperson. Federal government to introduce school-to-work scheme to enhance productivity. UNSA directs full enforcement of Nigeria's cybercrime law. We pay bandits for access to our farms, ex-Sokoto Governor Bafarawa. NIMET, GRMA, partner to enhance access to climate risk modeling. I think the story would be the big one here that says Nigeria's economy to experience significant growth soon. How soon is soon?
Well, you see, as an accountant, I give it to him that to manage this structure, he's doing well, and I have confidence in him. But when you have a good driver that can manage your car, that is not good or rickety, to the next mechanic workshop, and you encourage him to go out because he's a good driver, that's a risk. The fact that he has been able to manage our economy for 1 year now, in 2 weeks now it will be 1 year, is not a reason for us not to understand the reason why our economy is in a rickety shape. Our economy is in a rickety because of the economy we are operating. The concentration of resources of a nation at the center is one of our major challenges we have in this country. and that is trying to do something, put up economic strategy not to collapse, I give kudos to him. But that should not stop at that. And that is why all of us must speak in unison. That was what Buhari did for his 8 years. That is able to manage the economy of Nigeria for that 8 years. With this structure is, I say, it's a creation of a challenge. It's a creation of poverty for the nation. It's a creation of economic woe for the nation, this political structure. So if you're able to manage it, we have to give kudos to you.
What is, you know, what do you call manage the economy? Is it, you know, just at least keep it going and there's no war and crisis and every total collapse? Or is it improvement of what, you know, the standard of what an economy should look like, a progressive economy should look like? What do we define as managing the economy?
The recording decimal for a capitalist economy is for you to have a profile in anywhere a financial institution in the world to be able to access funds, which people call loans. Okay. That's the recording decimal. So Nigeria, yesterday, today, I don't know for tomorrow, has that image with IMF, with London, with Paris Club, to seek for that intervention and access to funds to run their economy. That's number one thing. Any nation in modern time that does not have that kind of issue, that's going to be a big problem for him. So that's number one thing. We have that
but we've never been there. Has there ever been a time when we couldn't access loans?
There are countries that...
I'm talking about Nigeria now.
No, I'm saying that there are countries that IMF will not talk to. So for
Nigeria,
us, that's a plus to us.
Yeah, but I mean, has there ever been a time when we couldn't access loans?
It's a flu. No, there could be time that your country might not be... There was a time that, at the tail end of the Jonathan's administration, all the countries in the world abandoned our oil. They said, we're not buying your oil again. Until Buhari came on board and revamped it. At the beginning of
Nigeria's oil.
Yeah, oil sales all over the world. At the beginning of Jonathan's administration too, it was doing well. And that's always the case with every successive president. At the beginning of the administration, they will always do well. But because of the kind of structure we operate, the challenge will emerge again. So at the beginning now, I give it. Of course, with this structure,
which is even scary, because if you say, because I did read this yesterday, that every president has that 1 year bounce, you know, where they come in and everybody is firing on all cylinders, you know, but after that, you know, they just go to sleep. So
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but if what you are currently experiencing with what Nigeria's current economy is doing well.
Yes.
So what happens when it then stops doing well? And again, is the standard the fact that you've only stopped at the fact that
get my message clearly. This structure is not a guarantee of prosperity. Can't guarantee Nigeria any prosperity.
So why do we bother?
If you are able to pay salary, this structure is a structure where the economy is supposed to be in collapse on daily basis. But if there's anybody that's able to survive this economy, which Obama is able to do, until the end of the administration, give it to them. And that's why I'm saying that we have to start talking about how to change this political structure and all. People who don't agree with me, and the need for us to quickly look at our structure, I don't losing focus. The earlier we start reminding the president that it may appear as if you are doing well, but in actual fact, you are doing well because we have a structure that is bad. We are supposed to be doing better if we have a proper structure in place, which should be our focus. Don't let us waste time in the debate of whether you agree with me or you don't agree with me. The debate should be how to get out of it. And that's why I said that there is no time other than now for us to begin to talk about it. So the more you try to convince me that it's not doing well, or the more I try to convince you that it's doing well, it's a waste of time.
Yeah, I mean, we are
all going to debate whether you should change the driver of a vehicle that is not bad, rather than repairing the vehicle. It's a waste of time. It's not about the driver. It's not about the president. It's about the structure, and that is why we must hold him responsible. If he didn't restructure, I will hold him personally responsible for that, because the understanding of what he should do, nobody can teach him about it again. It's an authority on it. And that's why I don't want to take a risk of explaining unapplying to Nigeria after his 4 years, as the case may be. I don't want to, that's why I'm saying this. People who want to placate him should come. I won't placate him. I won't patronize him. I will tell him the truth. It's wasting time on devolution of power. And that's a risk for us. Look at our case since 1966.
At what point are you going to tell him that?
That's what I'm doing.
No, I mean, because when is it going to be too late for you to, bother about what
It's late already.
It will.
Right.
Okay.
It's late to say that we should give him more time. There's no time to give anybody about devolution of power again. The reason why we have security challenges in this country is because of the kind of the economic institution we put in place, the structure we put in place today. How can one person preside over the security of 250 million Nigeria? That's the IG. Who does that? Show me the model anywhere in the world. There's nowhere it is done. Show me where in the world where the president read about 22 security reports in a day. He has 24 hours, even if he's not going to sleep. From Navy, from Army, from Police, from SSF, from NFA. Who does that? And you are saying that there's time to debate it too. And we are here talking about, oh, it's not doing well. The car is bad, repair it. Let's take the president on why he's not talking about the structuring of this country. Let any professor of politics or political theory come and debate it with me. That this is not the right time to discuss the structuring. The structure will keep throwing sensitive issues up. Issues that will look as if the country is going to tear apart. You will always have that challenge. Since 1966, tell me one.
Hold on, we'll get back to this. Daniel, good morning.
Hello, Daniel, are you here?
Okay, all right.
Tell me that time in our life, since 1966 till date, where Gowon, I was what consumed in the first instance. Gowon was in it for 9 years. That was what consumed Murtala. Go and look at the speech of Bisala and Dinka. That was what they said. They said they can't put their faith in the hand of one full animal. And that's what it consumed. If you say Woruwa, that's what they will say. If you say Anijoma, that's what they will say. This structure is running your life by proxy. People say they don't want it. And it's not people that say so, it's the nature. The political culture, if you study very well, determines the kind of political structure you are going to operate. America befits what is running today. British didn't follow the American model. Because the political structure indicates that the power must not be at the center. The Scottish run their life, Irish run their life. So that's the case with Nigeria.
I just want to ask, because we need to go. During the campaign, did they mention anything about their interest in devolution of power?
Yes.
And restructuring?
Yes.
And
go and read the manifesto. Go and read
I'm asking about the president himself.
Go and read his manifesto.
No. The president
the president's manifesto. Go and read the manifesto. He had a 92-page manifesto.
Yes.
Obi had his own. Atiku had his own. And conspicuous there.
But anybody can write a manifesto. Mr. President say it by himself.
He didn't only say it. He penned it down.
No,
I'm saying pen down.
I didn't. Do you remember any time that he was interviewed and he said it that these are my plans?
You can say something. I won't say that. That's not what you say. But for what you put down in writing, we can hold you responsible on that. Okay. We can hold you up on that.
And so we are at this point, you've given up.
No, I'm saying that I've given up in saying that there's no. The time is not now to the structure.
All right.
The time is now.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Olokoba, for joining us for the newspapers. And thank you to all our callers, as many who have called to be part of the conversation. We're going to break. And when we come back from the break, we have more stories to look at. We have Which Way Nigeria, and we'll be sharing what our top story for the week is. Stay with us.
Welcome once again. And of course, as we slowly wind down Breakfast Central for today and for the week, remember, Breakfast Extra comes your way tomorrow morning, and it's going to be a really, really fiery episode as always. We're sharing our top stories of the week, and mine will definitely have to be the controversy surrounding the demolition of the landmark resort. It came as a surprise to a few people a few weeks ago, including the ownership and and everyone who was working there. And initially, I'm sure a lot of Lagosians thought that there's no way they're going to demolish, the landmark resort.
We kept thinking they'll find a middle ground.
Yeah, exactly. There would be some agreement somehow, some way. And I did complain earlier that aside landmark, I just find it I'm just a little uncomfortable with the fact that, Lagos State government, Nigerian government doesn't waste time when they see water. They just want to fill it up, sandfield, and start building something. And I don't think it tells a good story about, our relationship with tourism, our relationship with our waterways. If we always are just looking for somehow, some way to build and to sandfill, any opportunity that we get. But that's a different conversation entirely, and it might be irrelevant in the larger scheme of building a coastal road for the better use of Nigerians. And I agree with that. If the coastal road is important, yes. But my top story has to be the whole controversy, the demolition, reactions to the demolition, the speed with which it was carried out, the controversy surrounding the bidding process, with which High-Tech got the contract, the controversy surrounding, once again, the speed with which the demolition was carried out without proper notice, the EIA report, which we're still waiting for. I remember that was mentioned by a fellow journalist, and of course he brought that into people's attention, the environmental impact assessment report that should have been produced or at least followed before this demolition. We're still waiting for it. We're hoping that the Nigerian government, of course, has that available so that we know that the followed truly due process before this demolition was carried out.
Well,
these are the many questions that surrounded this whole demolition. Everyone, of course, has chimed in, including Peter Obi and and Atiku Abubakar on this. And it's my top story for the week. Absolutely.
Well, my top story of the week, of course, would be something I will share when we're wrapping up the show. But let's go on the break. When we come back, we have Which Way Nigeria.
Now, this morning on Which Way Nigeria, let's discuss this petrol situation. Unfortunately, for the 10,000th time, and also unfortunately, it's not expected to be for the last time. Nigerians have once again found themselves begging, stressing, weeping, and struggling to get that very important commodity, petrol. And now, for those that may be complete strangers to Nigeria, and you're wondering why citizens of a nation which has one of the world's largest crude oil deposits, a country blessed with more natural resources than it can even account for, including massive amounts of crude oil, which has been exploring since 1958. Why do citizens of that country, with 4 major refineries, continue to be so degraded to this point, belittled just to get petrol for their vehicles and anything else? Well, if you ask me, honestly, I wish I had an answer that would make perfect sense. I wish I could tell you that none of Nigeria's refineries have worked and refined petrol for its own local consumption for decades. And so this great country, Nigeria, sends crude oil abroad to other countries and then imports refined petrol back to Nigeria through the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited. It's like the village leader with the biggest penis, still needing men from neighboring communities to help impregnate his wives. And to add to all of this, the Niger Delta, which is the main region where this crude oil is gotten from, after decades of exploration, looks nothing close to a place that has such rich mineral resources. I mean, how do I explain that successive governments have come and gone and not one of these governments over decades has been able to get even one of Nigeria's refineries working to full capacity? What language do I use in explaining that there is so much stealing of Nigeria's crude in the Niger Delta regions, but of course, you see massive vessels that come and load millions of barrels of crude and disappear. Yet the government has not been able to put an end to it. And that the same government awarded as recently as 2022 a 48 billion naira contract to a former militant leader, Tompolo, to secure Nigeria's pipeline from vandals, a country that has all sorts of security agencies. And that not even long ago, a sham of an investigation into the mismanagement of funds running into billions of naira meant for the improvement of the Niger Delta region by the NDDC led to a very popular and, of course, fake collapse during the Senate hearing. You can see, of course, that pictures there that made memories across Nigeria in 2020. And that was the last we heard of that investigation. This morning, I'm asking the question that I strongly believe that almost every Nigerian is asking themselves today as they stand in petrol queues waiting and begging for hours just to buy petrol. What have we done to deserve this kind of life? Like, who did we offend along the long journey of Nigeria's history to deserve this type of suffering? Who did our parents or grandparents offend to make this our reality today? That people of all ages and backgrounds dress up and go spend hours in petrol queues looking completely deflated emotionally and psychologically because their country can't just get, this one thing right. Who have we offended that has cursed us this bad that in 2024, while other nations are building and transforming their societies to first world status with the same oil wealth, we, the Nigerian citizens, can't go 3 months without facing petrol scarcity, talk less of building our nation with oil wealth. There's many other things that will shock you about this whole situation. Just like how a week ago, just barely in 2014 here, a couple of days ago, Nigerians were paying 86 or 87 naira for a liter of petrol. And then just like a movie, we suddenly are paying more than 600 naira per liter in 2024 because the current government came with a removal of fuel subsidies for reasons, of course, that they explained to Nigerians. They threw Nigerians into its worst economic crisis and inflation that they have ever experienced, only for it to turn out that we are still paying subsidies. I mean, according to the former Kaduna State Governor El Rufai, he said we're paying even higher than before, and yet there is still petrol scarcity even at 600 naira per litre. There is no explanation that is going to make any sense to a sane mind. It's just the way it has been, the way it is, and the way it will likely continue to be. And so this morning, let the pain you endure at those petrol queues be a reminder to you as a Nigerian that, again, nothing else matters when choosing leadership but the possibility of having a better living experience as a Nigerian. Because those bad decisions and both bad leadership decisions that affect, everyone would affect you too. You are never immune from the consequences simply because your tribesman won the election. Good morning, Nigerians.
What a fantastic, sad, but realistic way to end the show. You're not going to be any better because your tribesman won the election. I was thinking, at the fuel stations would have people from certain tribe having fuel at a cheaper rate.
Absolutely.
Or people from a political party having fuel at a cheaper rate. Or not even having to queue at all. But the reality is, like they say in social media parlance, it will touch everybody. It has touched all of us, and we must completely realize that when we're making our choices for our country and those to put at the helm of affairs, all of us will be a party to, to the effects thereafter. We've come to the end of today's show, and it's time for us to wrap up and head out to the streets to go queue for fuel. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of Breakfast Central. Hopefully, we'll not be talking about queuing for fuel by Monday, when we will be back for our next show. But remember that Breakfast Extra happens over the weekend, tomorrow and on Sunday. So stick around for all the stories you've missed during the course of the week, as well as fresh stories developing over the weekend. We'll see you again on Monday, and I like to say on Fridays, do not drink and drive. Turn up with sense. I am Olive Emodi.
And I am Osaogi Ogbon. See you on Monday.